Welcome to the Dark Side of Soul podcast. This is Joe.
This is Sean.
Thank you for joining us today. We want to remind you that we also run the Dark Side of Soul Ghost Walk, which you can book at darksideofsoul.com. Please remember to subscribe to our show. You can also join our Patreon at patreon.com/darksideofsoul, where you can get lots of extras for as little as $5 a month. And you can also join our Facebook page at facebook.com/darksideofsoul. You seeing a pattern here?
Mm-hmm.
And we have where we host watch parties with horror movies and chat. You know, everyone gets around the chat room and gets all Rocky Horror on the horror movies, I guess. You can say that. Also, we're working on the book. Contact us with supernatural experiences you've had in Korea. Right, Sean?
That's right. Yes, I'm collecting experiences that people have allegedly had in Korea, blending them in with experiences that have happened experiences that have happened on the tour, experiences from our guests on the tour, and going to put it all together into a book about modern ghost experiences in Korea.
Very cool.
So get in touch.
Very cool.
By Facebook.
Today,
I guess Facebook's the easiest way to do it. Yeah.
I noticed that we spend a lot of time at the beginning of the show just before even getting to our topic. I hate it when shows do that. You know, okay. I hate it. Like, here I'm doing it now. I watch a YouTube video. I've learned for a lot of the channels I've subscribed to on YouTube is to skip ahead 1 minute so I can get to the content.
Right.
Yeah. Everything's front loaded.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, let's hop to it.
All right. So today we're going to continue our discussion of mysterious deaths in Korea. Mm-hmm. I don't even know what Sean's going to talk about. It's going to be a surprise to me too.
Oh, really?
I don't read the notes.
I don't either, actually.
I think Sean just makes it up as he goes along.
Writing stories in my head. I don't read the notes either. I remember when you said we're going to have to, when we're doing setting things up for the podcast initially, you're like, we have to have show notes. I'm like, what are those? You're like, well, the outline of the content. I was like,
you think when you watch the news that anchors have just memorized everything and they're just coming up with it on the spot?
No, and that's true. But they're just pretty faces, Joe. We're more than just pretty faces.
That is true. I did work in news, and it is true.
But something I will talk about tonight on this episode is a case that I was following pretty closely back in June 2018. And when this was a fresh case, I shared it on the tour, just as telling people about things that were happening at that time, contemporary things at that time that were happening in Korea. And it was a case of a 16-year-old girl who went missing in Gangjin in Chollonamdo on June 24th, 2018. And she was missing for roughly 8 days, roughly a week. And it was a mystery. A lot of strange circumstances surrounded the case. So now initially, she was last seen leaving her home at 2 o'clock, roughly 2 o'clock in the afternoon on June 16th. But prior to her leaving, she was messaging with a friend on Facebook. He's in Facebook Messenger, and telling her friend that she was going to meet a friend of the family, an older man in his early 50s, about a part-time job. Apparently he had offered her a part-time job of some sort, but she wouldn't disclose to her friend what the job was. Excuse me. And so the friend thought that, that's great. You can make a bit of money. And so she left. Now she messaged her friend again a couple of times after that. Her friend sent a reply around 3 o'clock that afternoon, but that reply was never read. So now, in Facebook Messenger and also on Kakao Talk and whatnot. When someone reads the message, it gives you an indication that it's been read or at least looked at.
Yeah.
And the message that the friend sent to the 16-year-old girl was never seen. And then by 4:30 that afternoon, that girl's phone was turned off. Mm. And it was the tracing. They traced the phone when they started looking for her to a local mountain called Meibong-san. So when she didn't arrive home, later that evening, the family started to call her all of her friends. Like the mother started calling her friends and whatnot. And then they got in touch with the friend that the girl was in touch with through Facebook earlier that day. And she said, well, she went off to allegedly meet a friend of the family, someone who was offering her a job. And the mother was able to pinpoint who that probably was. It was a man that his name has only been disclosed as Kim. And so she went to Kim's house, Mr. Kim's house, knocked on the door, and there was no answer. No. I'm sorry, that's not correct. She was refused entry. Yes, she wasn't allowed in. The family wouldn't let her in. And they said that Kim, the father of the house, wasn't home. So what made that stranger is that the next day, the police got a hold of CCTV footage outside of the man's home. And it showed that when the mother had arrived and was knocking on the front door, trying to get in to see if they knew anything about her daughter, Mr. Kim escaped through the back. Oh, so wow. He knew that she was there and probably told the family that, that tell her that, I'm not here, I'm gone, and don't let her in. Now, what made the whole thing stranger is that Kim was found hanged the next day. He was hanging dead in a construction site nearby. Now, the girl's body the girl wasn't found. She was still missing. And so Kim was the prime suspect, especially because, he just committed suicide. So it seemed very strange that he would have done that suddenly and escaped through the back door when the mother was looking for him to talk to him. So the police turned him into a suspect, but there's nothing they could do. He was dead. It's kind of like how the Seoul mayor.
Yeah, I was thinking that.
Yeah, so how he was accused.
There's the investigation. Well, someone had accused him of sexual harassment. Mm-hmm. Started an investigation, commit suicide. Investigation stopped.
Yeah, that's right. No justice for the victim. Yeah,
committed suicide when his family was being investigated for, I think it was embezzlement. Investigation stopped.
Yeah, scandal of some sort. Yeah. So same thing here. So this guy Kim, Mr. Kim, he was I hate saying Mr. Kim because he doesn't deserve the honorific of being called Mr. I think.
Hair Kim.
And Buddy Kim, that guy Kim. I'm just going to call him Kim.
How about asshole Kim?
Asshole Kim. So he was the prime suspect, but now dead, which increased, the probability that he was involved in the girl's disappearance. Mm. So she remained missing for 8 days. And during that week, from June 16th, because I read about the story earlier that day and I had a tour that night. So all the tours I did leading up to with those 8 days, I told the story on the tour. And it was updating. It was just telling people this is something that I was following that was happening at the time. And then finally her body was found on the 8th day at that mountain, Meibong-san. It's a local mountain there in Ganjin. In the circumstances of her body, now she was very decomposed. Decomposition was very bad. And but it was very apparent that she was naked and her head was shaved. So very, very strange, the circumstances surrounding the condition of her body. So the decomposition was so bad that it was they couldn't even determine it was her. and then initially, and then they weren't able to determine whether she suffered any sexual assault herself, if she was raped or anything like that, torture. There was no way to tell. So that remains part of the mystery as well. Now, the key thing is the mountain itself, Meibongsan. Very steep, not very well hiked by the locals. They don't tend to do much around there. There's not a lot within or around the mountain itself, especially near the top. And it was very overgrown. Like there are no trails and things like that. It's just not it's a local mountain that everyone knows, but it's not a very popular place. So the police determined, and I tend to agree with this, that it's unlikely that she climbed up the mountain herself. Or sorry, very unlikely that the body was carried there. And it seems more likely that she did go up to the mountain herself. She did make her way up under her own strength. So she was probably alive when she first arrived at the mountain, when she got to the top. Whether she went up there on her own or she was forced up there, we have no idea, and we'll never know. The only two people that probably know are dead. So the DNA samples taken from her body matched DNA that was found in Kim's truck and some tools that he had in the truck. So it seems that, so obviously she was in the vehicle, and she did come into contact in some way with the tools. The tools were clean, but they did have DNA, so they were possible murder weapons. The key thing was the autopsy found traces of sleeping pills in her body. So she was given drugs. For what reason? That remains part of the mystery. So he is he's the main subject. It's more than 2 years later. He's the main subject, but his motives are a mystery. We have no idea why he would have done this, if he did do it at all. And there's some key things that I think are strange. First, why was she naked? What was the point of that? Why was her head shaved? That's a very strange point.
Yeah.
You know, it seems almost ritualistic.
Yeah.
Or what other purpose could it have served? And there's no indication that Kim was involved in any kind of rituals or anything like that. We have no idea. It's just very, very strange. Now, there was an earlier report at that time that I read when I was following the case when it was fresh, suggesting that Kim was on hard times. He had financial trouble, and he may have been looking for a way to make money. So I've come up with a theory.
Okay, what's
and
your theory?
I think other people may have suggested this as well. I think Kim was looking to remove the girl's kidney or part of her liver to sell on the black market to make money. Now, it may sound far-fetched, but there are a lot of things that do kind of back it up and make the case even darker than it is. So, first, I think he may have convinced her to be part of this. The idea where she told her friend she was going for a part-time job. Part of it, and she refused to disclose what that was, part of that may have been he convinced her somehow to go under the knife and give up a kidney, and he would give her part of the money.
Oh, my.
Now, that's pretty dark, but it follows more line of thinking regarding the case. I think Kim may have attempted the organ removal himself, but he screwed up. He botched it. And I think that was the whole point of the sleeping pills, to put her under and to have her fall asleep. But he gave her too many, and maybe he couldn't wake her, or he decided that he wasn't able to go through with it, and so maybe she died, whatever the case may be. And so he dumped her body and just left her there on the mountain. Because remember, it's very likely that she went up that mountain herself. She wasn't carried up there, given the terrain of the mountain itself. Mm-hmm. Now, this is a theory that I have, but there are a lot of reasons to be skeptical of the theory as well. It would mean that Kim would have thought himself proficient enough in organ removal that he'd be able to carry out the procedure
on a mountain.
In a mountain in the middle of nowhere, and he would have been dumb enough to think that the organ would have been would survive long enough to be of any value on the black market.
Yeah,
but there are a lot of unintelligent people.
A lot of people who commit crimes aren't that smart.
No, they're not. Yeah. But there's something else that kind of links to this, not directly in any way, but kind of bolsters and holds up this theory that he may have wanted to remove an organ to make money. Mm-hmm. And he screwed it up, and then he ended up killing himself because he didn't want to go to jail. South Korea, for a few years, has been one of the largest indirect contributors to the black market organ harvesting industry in China.
Oh my.
So this was revealed in a report a month before this girl died. So the timing is very interesting. And I keep saying the girl. I should mention that her name was never revealed to the public. That's why I keep saying the girl. So this report came out a month before she died. That's very, very interesting, I think, anyway. But in 2015, only 15% of Koreans who needed organ transplants got them. So that indicated that there was a shortage of donors at that time anyway, in 2015. Mm-hmm. So a large percentage of them went to China for transplants. And a lot of them often came from the black market.
Oh my.
So I wonder if that got into his head. He had these financial troubles. He knew this family. He was friends with the girl's father and the mother. And he knew of a young child, because young organs, I'm sure, would fetch a bigger price tag than older ones. He somehow convinced her to be part of it, or tricked her into getting a job, and then he drugged her and botched the process of trying to remove an organ. And then he thought he could make money by selling the organ on the black market. As daft as that may sound, I do think maybe that may be what happened here. There's no way to really know. That's just a way that I'm trying to rationalize and put this forward. How did this case happen? How did it move in such a way that it became a mystery? The only thing that remains unexplained to me is why was her head shaved? I don't know why.
Sell her hair.
Sell her hair, maybe for a wig, possibly. Her hair was never found. So, or there was no report of her hair ever being found. So there could be something with that. So anyway, as far as I'm concerned, the death of this 16-year-old girl, the circumstances leading up to her death, the motive of the suspect, and whether or not he had an accomplice, which is possible, all remain one of Korea's most mysterious cases currently open.
Wow.
So I think it's one of Korea's most haunting modern mysteries.
Man. Oh, now I just want to lock my daughter in a room.
Yeah. That kind of stuff is frightening.
It is.
So
it is.
But yeah, I've been trying to follow this case more for updates or anything. But as tends to be the case with mysteries in Korea, once they go cold after a couple of years, the media just drops them, and it's kind of difficult to.
Yeah, there's not an unsolved mysteries in Korea. The closest we get is surprise.
Right, and you talked about. I didn't hear about that until you talked about it on this episode.
No, you watch it every Sunday, don't you?
No, I still haven't seen. Is it on? Still on TV? I don't know.
I'm pretty sure it is. Lately, the family has not been watching TV on Sundays, but I'm sure it's on.
Anyway,
I'm sure you got to keep the Russian population in Korea employed somehow.
That's the actors in the show, right?
Yes.
Right. Yeah, I need a swig of coffee after that story.
All right, go do that. I'll relay. I'm going to go back to talking about mysterious expat deaths.
Yeah, those are creepy.
Yeah, you'll find maybe patterns in these, and I'm going to talk about two significant deaths that kind of changed things in a way. The first one was Matthew Sellers back in April 2003. I talked to his sister on the old Seoul podcast back in 2008. When she told me his story, and I went back and I transcribed basically what it was about. So he was 35 years old, and he'd worked in Seoul for 10 years. So he'd been there since like 93. He had a working knowledge of Korean, but she received a call from him saying that he had become unhappy with his employment situation and wanted to come home, and then just broke contact with everyone. And he had a bad problem with his employer. Now, this was still in the days, and we still get that a little bit today, but it was rampant in the 90s and early 2000s, the shady practices of Hagwons. And so his Hagwon, his school, was holding his passport hostage. That's how they do. They used to do. If anyone's doing that to you now, man, get it back. It's a kind of insurance to make sure that you wouldn't leave. Do a midnight run was they would hold your passport until you finished your contract. And
that was common too, the midnight runners.
Yeah, the midnight runners. Yeah. Midnight runners still happen.
Sure.
My friend right across the street runs a Hagwon. He had a midnight run. Yeah.
Another episode, Dark Side of Hagwons, Private English Academies.
We could do a whole podcast series on that. You could just do Hagwon Hotline.
Right.
Right. It'll be repetitive. Everyone can, having the same problem, I'm sure. Yeah. I'm being overworked. My employer hasn't paid my full salary yet. Anyway, so he went to the embassy to get help to return his passport. And he called his family back in the States and said that he was afraid to return to his apartment, that he had run into problems with Korean thugs. And less than a week later, he had made a reservation at a hotel. And there was a party. So someone was supposed to meet him. That person didn't show, or said that he didn't show. And he ended up in police custody with no shoes and no jacket on. This is April, so it's still kind of chilly outside. Now, the police say he got into the back of a taxi cab or private car, and the person in the car drove him to the police because he was shivering and having difficulty expressing himself. And the police ended up having to coax him out of the car because he was just so afraid. The police called the U.S. Embassy. You'll find this as a pattern. The U.S. Embassy was called, but was reluctant to help. And it was supposed to be, and they say on the websites and everything that the embassies are supposed to respond ASAP. And later on, there was a matter of semantics of what ASAP really meant. They were claiming it would be like, it was 48. ASAP means like 48 hours, but after investigations on how the embassy has dealt with problems in Korea in the past, it usually take 4 days for someone to actually do an initial visit.
helping their citizens.
Yeah. We find this is an issue with the U.S. Embassy in Korea. And I don't know of any recent cases, but what I'm going to talk about today, I am wondering if it had something to do with the peculiar situation that Korea is in, that the U.S. Embassy acts a little laissez-faire with its citizens here in order, if it's going to be a politically sensitive situation. So anyway, they claim that Matthew said that people were feeding off his brain. Now I got to remember, I'm going to post a PDF on our website, darksideofso.com/podcast. You can find our episode where I have a PDF of the embassy transcript. Yes, I have my hands on that, and you can just read it all in detail. And you can tell it's not a formal document because there's a lot of abbreviations and colloquialisms in it. But and the family afterwards was doing lots of freedom of information requests, and they got blocked so many times, and there likely were recordings of Matthew's phone calls to the embassy, and they would refuse to release those recordings. So maybe they were just trying to present the reports as saying that he wasn't explicitly asking for help, because that's the rule. Rule at the time, people had to explicitly ask for help before the embassy would help them, and they were trying to make it maybe fudge it that he didn't explicitly ask for help. We don't know because they wouldn't release the recordings. Since then, it has been revised that if someone is mentally ill, that the embassy is obligated to step in. So this is how this has helped. Is this incident helped to change how things were done at the U.S. Embassy in Korea? But anyway, I'm just going more into the embassy. I'm sorry, I'm going through because I went through transcripts with his sister of our conversation around a little over 10 years ago, and the embassy always goes talking about how Korea is a safe country for Americans to be in. And you think about the juxtaposition of the embassy saying Korea is a safe country while also having the most heavily guarded embassy in Seoul.
I never thought about that.
Yeah. You ever think about that? I mean, and it's such a prime location. It is in a very touristy spot. It's in Gwanghwamun Plaza, where all the tourists go to take pictures of Gyeongbokgung Palace and King Sejong and Admiral Lee Sun-shin. And then there's this, we call it's Fort America. It's this high walled barbed wire location with soldiers, looks like soldiers standing outside, people in fatigues standing outside. It's like you went to the embassy in Kabul. It's just right smack in prime real estate in Seoul. It's so sad because everything else looks so bright and pleasurable and touristy, and then there's this pocket of war zone.
Yeah.
Yes.
The interesting point. What I've heard is that a few of our colleagues have told me this, that the Americans have been trying to get out of there for decades, for quite some time. They've been wanting to move, but the Koreans won't let them. Like, no, that's your land.
Okay, I heard there are efforts that they are planning to move out. They are.
Could be. Maybe they've finally reached an agreement.
I mean, come on, that's where the center of all the protests. Wouldn't it be nice to just move away from all those centers of protest? Yeah, you think. So the embassy claimed that Matthew hung up the phone on them at the police station when actually the police took the phone from him and hung it up because the embassy wasn't responding. So Matthew was livid, and they ended up taking him to a mental facility where he tried to escape from the mental facility. So they strapped him down, and even though he explicitly said, "Do not give me drugs," they injected him with some drugs. I didn't check on the spellings of these. I think it's lorazepam and Haldol. I'm not familiar with those types of drugs. I'm sure others are very familiar. So he calmed down, went to sleep, and the overnight staff said that he was asleep with jerking movements, and the next day he started perspiring. They did something called the Babinski test to see if he would respond to pain, which he didn't respond. and then his oxygen fell down to dangerous levels, and he had rapid breathing and an elevated blood pressure. So they decided to transport him to a medical facility. Now, again, this sounds like the Michael White story we told from the last episode we did on this. The police said the police report was different from the hospital report. The police said that Matthew arrived and he was pale and breathing shallowly, and the hospital said he was dead on arrival. And the autopsy, another questionable autopsy, said that he just died of sudden cardiac arrest. It was natural causes. Didn't claim it was drugs or anything else. It's natural causes, even though healthy young man, 35 years old, family has no history of heart issues, sport athlete. I mean, it can happen, but we've also seen this pattern of autopsies that kind of made you scratch your head.
Yeah.
So the family couldn't get much information about the autopsy. They even went as far. Now, this is during the Bush administration, the W administration. They contacted their senator. The family was based in Alabama, so it was Richard Shelby, Senator Richard Shelby, and it went as far up as Secretary of State Colin Powell. They were informed of the case, and they actually started investigating the case a bit. A prominent lawyer in Washington, D.C. said he would take the case, but then suddenly everything stopped. Shelby stopped, Powell stopped, and even the law firm that the lawyer belonged to, they said, no, we don't want to get involved. This was, so we get these things all the time. They just don't want to be involved. And you wonder if it's because of some giant political situation where they'll sacrifice their own citizens for some political situation going on there. So they did lots of freedom of information requests for 3 years, the family did. And their final document they got said, after all they got, there were still 22 documents that they will never get, that the government will never release.
Weird.
And so the family had asked for Matthew's body to be returned so they could do an autopsy in the U.S. When he arrived, the examiner took one look and said, well, why is all this makeup on his face? Like they made him up for a funeral. And they also explicitly asked they don't remove the organs, but they did. He showed up without any organs. Weird. And he showed up with bruises on his right cheek, on his abdomen, chest, and upper arms, even though no one in Korea said he had any bruising. So it ended up being just one of the more mysterious deaths. You don't know what happened. Why did he really go crazy? Did he really have a sudden cardiac arrest? What all was going on? Was it another just series of errors that caused this to happen? You know, and was there a cover-up? Were there a series of cover-ups? And again, why was the U.S. Embassy so unresponsive in this case? So that's one of those really mysterious deaths.
Yeah. Very bizarre, very frightening. Especially when, you know, governments get involved and then they don't do anything to really help you.
The lesson from this is do not depend on your embassy to help you. This is not like how it is in the movies.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
Nope.
Yeah.
I got another one unless you want to do another one.
No, I'm good. Let's do one more. Let's do yours. We'll do one more.
All right. Now, this is a big one. I think longtime expats in Korea will remember this. And this was a big case. And I really just wanted to revisit this because it was so emotional for a lot of us. Bill Kapoun. I think a lot of people who were around, it was 2008, remember Bill Kapoun. This was a momentous occasion in the expat community because for the longest time, I would say the Western expats, at least, were about as they were just independent cats. No, not much in as far as forming a community, as you would see, like with immigrants in other countries. You know, you think immigrants in other countries, they do form their own communities to support each other, but in Korea, it was kind of every person for themselves. Rugged individualism just ran rampant here. So Bill Kapoun was a teacher in Korea. He'd been here for a year and a half, around 14 months, working at a crappy hagwon, a shady hagwon. He had a Korean girlfriend, and they kind of lived with each other. Bill also had a roommate. Of course, his apartment was supplied by the school. And I have a feeling it might have been, I don't know what kind of apartment it is, but in my mind's eye, I see it as a half basement.
Oh, really?
In my mind's eye, I keep thinking of it as, I was put in a half basement when I was, it was definitely on the first floor or a half basement, because you will find that you were able to get into their house because of an unlocked sliding door. So what happened was Bill and his girlfriend were in the bedroom, and a fire broke out in the living room. He opened the door, and they think that the fire, like a backdraft, flashed him, and they both were burned. His girlfriend died at the scene, died in the apartment, and Bill was rushed to the hospital with third-degree burns over 70% of his body. Now, a third-degree burn is when you look like a toasted marshmallow, like a burnt toasted marshmallow. That third degree is almost, you can't recover from a third-degree burn.
Layers and layers of skin are gone.
Yeah.
Muscle, yeah. I think that burned. Third degree is defined as down to the like a muscle has burned as well.
The skin is gone.
The skin is gone. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Yeah. Basically, he was rushed to the hospital. He needed 2 skin grafts. One was done at first. The family was contacted. Now, this is where things really went into gear. Is Facebook the friends of Bill were able to get in touch with the family. So there's like school friends and such were able to get in touch with the family. Families get in touch with them through Facebook. And the mother and father, I think the father was there. Yeah, the father was there too. Were rushed up to Seoul. The friends picked him up at the airport, rushed him straight to Hangang Sacred Heart Hospital. And right when the family enters the hospital hands them a bill.
Jesus.
Before they even get to see their son.
No.
And they'd already done 1 skin graft and said he needs a second one, but they won't do it until they cough up some money and pay for what has already been done. So they did what they could to come up with the money. One of Bill's sisters started a fundraiser, and this is where the expat community came together. Is they raised money to pay for him. And it was an ongoing thing. It lasted for a good while. But there was no communication. The hospital didn't have any English speaking staff. No one that could help. The embassy, U.S. Embassy, was contacted, did not provide anything. I'll get to the embassy later. This will make you cry and how sad it is, and hilariously sad inept the embassy was. So one person that was there, one Korean friend was able to translate a bit and said that he was told that if Bill could last for 2 weeks, he could make it. But he died 6 hours before he hit that 2-week mark. Turned out he wasn't insured by his school, which is required by law. Surprise, surprise.
Yeah. They were not. They typically don't pay into the insurance,
right? And just search. And in fact, you can go online. The fundraiser that is the blog that his sister created is still there. It's called Save Bill Kapoun, KAPOUN.blogspot.com. I'll have a link to it up on the website. It still exists, and it had all the updates from back then. It's kind of a time capsule. So there was lots of media coverage about the conditions at the school. And this is right when the people were trying to organize, the ATEC was getting started. And they're talking about how the schools were just getting away with dishonoring their contracts, breaking the laws all the time, holding teachers hostage by keeping their passports, uh, the situation where teachers, unlike in Japan, if someone is on a teaching visa in Japan and their school has bad conditions, they can change schools and not lose their visa. In Korea, you still can't do that. As the E2 visa, your school owns your visa. So if you leave that school, you lose your visa on top of losing your housing too. So there's a big risk if you decide to leave your employer.
Yeah, that's why after in my third year, maybe my fourth year, I bought my own plane tickets and I rented my own place. So
good on you.
Yeah, I did that pretty early.
I made sure to do
2003, 2004.
Yeah, my third 2006. So I got here in 2004. So 2006. No. My school still had my apartment, but we ended up buying it from them. Not buying it, but taking over the lease.
Yes, I see. Mm.
Yeah, we ended up taking over the lease so that we were independent of our school, even though that was the best school I ever worked for.
Right.
Yeah. But anyway. So, excuse me, I'm going to cough. There's some good stuff in here. I'm putting this in here because there were some shining moments, even though it was a tragedy that Bill died and his girlfriend died. And go see it. It's just, the young man looked like he had just such a drive and such a positive attitude. A politician they only knew as Mr. Lee stepped in and he paid the bills. He fronted the money so that Bill could get his skin grafts and everything. Paid $33,000 out of his own pocket. After he died, that's what happened. After he died, the hospital wouldn't send his body back to the States until the bill was paid. So he fronted the money. The expat community raised money to reimburse him. There was an online fundraiser, and there was even a big fundraiser at Philly's, the bar, which we still have today. They raised $133,000. I did not know English teachers had that much money.
How much? Sorry, can you repeat that?
$133,000.
Yeah, that's amazing.
That was the figure I got from the Jungang Daily. Wow. So they were able to pay for everything for the family. Anyway. So it was the first time, I think it was the first fundraiser done by the expat community here. And it was the first time everyone got together for a cause. Now we have lots of Facebook groups and special causes and fundraisers. And you see it's a lot more common now, even though we still have a little bit of a rugged individualist attitude still, but it's less so than it used to be. And it was
less need for it, I think. Also.
Yeah, that is true. That is true. But it's been heartening to see that we have a little more of a community spirit here. You know what? I mean, I think after my experience with this, and I was running the early Soul podcast at the time, I think that's why a lot of my endeavors after that centered around trying to build community. The podcast I do right now, Dark Side, we're trying to build community in Dark Side. Mm-hmm. My Facebook group, Restaurant Buzz Soul, is really all about building community. And so I think it was Bill Kapoun's death. I hate saying that, but yeah, it had some positive changes here. Now, going back to what the U.S. Embassy was doing. Sorry if you're from the embassy listening to this, you don't come out looking good. The only time the U.S. Embassy ever made a visit to the family was when the family was going to check out Bill's apartment to see if there's anything they could salvage. The door was locked. There was yellow police tape, but they found that the window was you can slide that open, and they were able to get inside and then unlock the door. They believe that the embassy was there to make sure that he didn't have any drugs or anything that would make Americans look bad, that the Korean press couldn't go to town on. They found that there was no evidence, any attempts that were made to put the fire out. There was no water damage, no foam or anything. It just looked like they just let it burn out. There's a major burn mark on the floor under a sofa. And the fire department believed that was from a flammable liquid. And this is where it brings up a lot of questions. But the police said in order to investigate the fire, they needed to leave Bill's body behind for an autopsy. And, the family at the time is like, they're in grief and they're like, we want our son home. I mean, the mother had like children back at home, younger children back at home to take care of. And she was on the next flight back. And so they just bring him home. So, oh my gosh, I'm trying to organize my thoughts here. So yeah, they just waived their right for the police to do any type of investigation into the fire because they just wanted his body. They didn't want him to have an autopsy done in Korea. Before Bill died, Bill's father went to the U.S. Embassy to try to get a loan to help pay for the hospital bills. And but the embassy wouldn't give. I mean, yeah, they knew about the loan. They were helping them process the loan, but other than that, the family really just wanted translation help. The only way the embassy tried to help the family was the night before Bill died. They offered them opera tickets.
Jesus.
Yeah. Okay, now that you're done laughing. They were able to get translation help through a friend who contacted Mormon missionaries. Mormons in Korea, man. They help out. I used to talk to, there's a Mormon church near where I used to live in Anyang, and I would pass by it a lot, and I would sometimes run by and have small talk with the missionaries that were there at the bus stops. Cool dudes, nice kids. Anyway, I'm trying to think. I'm looking at my notes, trying to see if there's anything I haven't said yet. This is touching. So the Korean girlfriend, she was found dead. No, she wasn't. Oh, I take that back. She was not found dead at the apartment. She was also taken to the hospital, but she had died 3 days before Bill. And her family didn't speak any English. Of course, Bill's family didn't speak any Korean, but they tried to connect with each other. They hugged, and Bill's family attended Bill's girlfriend's memorial service. Then Bill died, and his mother flew back to America before Bill's service in Korea. But she learned later that Bill's girlfriend's family went to Bill's memorial service, and at the service they asked if they were able to salvage any of Bill's things, any of his belongings, and if they could have them. And the reason being that they wanted to posthumously marry them. They wanted to do some type of, is that a shamanic thing? Do you know?
Well,
or Buddhist? I don't know.
I don't think it's Buddhist. A shamanic thing. Yeah, see, again, it could be a regional thing. This was all, there are posthumous weddings that I've read about in Korean, but whether it's actually shamanic, I'm not sure.
I just think it was beautiful. It was very touching. It makes me, that's the part that makes me want to cry, is they had a posthumous marriage, a wedding for them. The background is, now this is speculation. Bill had told his family before this whole thing happened that there was some type of hoax, or he says it was a hoax. Maybe it wasn't a hoax, but they said that the girlfriend's brother, someone attempted to kidnap him. And they were wondering if maybe the family was in trouble with the mafia, and they were trying to threaten the family by going after the children, and maybe Bill's girlfriend was the target of some retaliation, and that might have been the reason for the fire. again, mysterious deaths, and we will never know. But that was a big one. That was one of the expat deaths that really made the news. That his and Michael White's, which we talked about a few episodes ago. Those are the big ones, and all this stuff happened in 2008, 2009. A lot of this stuff. No. Matthew Sellers happened, and Maddie Sellers happened in 2003. But a lot of stuff, because I think Vereen, is that her name? The woman. I don't want to go into the South African woman. I think something she was assaulted, and there were issues about that, and that led to. Never mind. I'm going to cut this out.
Okay.
I was trying to hunt for this, and I couldn't find anything. But I remember in the back. So I was doing an investigation, a little more, trying to find more info on Bill Kapoun of anything that's happened since then, and I came across the bile pool that is Dave's ESL Cafe.
Oh, yeah.
And I stepped into that muck of sewage and read down a thread. And it was a year later, and they were doing a remembrance of Bill. It was a nice thread, but of course you had some socially inept people who went and trolled the thread, trashing a dead guy. Because that's the types of people that used to come here. Yeah. But someone had mentioned something about South African woman named Vereen. And they remembered the two things was Bill and Vereen. And I'm like, I remember that too, vaguely in the back of my head, but I can't remember specifically what that situation was. And I've Googled it. I've tried so many ways to search for this, and I can't find anything. Maybe I'll just put a call out. Okay, rather than edit this out, maybe I'll just put a call out and say, if you remember this case, please jog my memory, because I'm trying to remember. I don't think this is related to. This is not the. No. That's Jessica Vernon. I'm thinking of the AIDS case. No, she didn't have AIDS. That was when the UN Human Rights Council was there was a challenge to Korea's requirement for E2 visas to get AIDS test, HIV test.
She's from Australia, wasn't she? A few years ago.
Yeah, maybe she was Australian. That was a while back. That was
5 years ago, maybe.
No, even more than that. Even more than that, because 2016, I met her lawyer.
Oh, okay.
He ate at my restaurant. Ben Wagner. Oh my God, that guy's amazing.
Well, 2016 is 4 years ago. You met her lawyer then. I see.
But that was after the fact, I think.
Right. I see. Right. Okay.
Her name was Vernon, I think. Okay, so I'm mixing. So Vernon. Sorry, that sounded similar in my mind. Warning to everyone: do not get old. Screws with your memory.
Yeah.
Why do I remember the dumbest, most trivial things, but I can't remember important things like names and events?
You know all the names and events of Star Wars.
Dude. I outside the movie, I know from the novels and the TV shows, I know everything, and the video games.
Just quick before we close it here. I went through. I couldn't remember the name of the funeral, the posthumous funerals that are done in Korean tradition. So I brought up my. I got a big file here full of my folklore studies. In Korean, it's called the Yeonhon Kyolhonshik. So Yeonhon Kyolhonshik. Kyolhonshik means, of course, marriage. So the Yeonhon. Hon means spirit. So the Yeonhon Kyolhonshik. So essentially, that could be said as the marriage of spirits. That is the posthumous wedding. So that may have been the idea that the parents had, but I don't know if they actually followed those traditions. And I've also listed here I've also listed here, and I didn't realize that the Moonies also sometimes mark
I think we mentioned that on the show. Did we?
Did we? Well, we mentioned marriages. Did we mention posthumous weddings? I'm not sure. I can't remember if we did.
We did talk about the funeral rites. They created new funeral rites.
Right. So predominantly shamanic, yeah, but it is also observed in Confucianism and Buddhism. I got to go back. I have so much stuff that I don't remember. I haven't really dug into. Like I was like, oh, that's interesting. I make a note
we do
of it.
A lot of work
put it in my file, and then I forget.
This is where we need the community. This is why we build community too. It's like we need help.
Right. Yeah.
If you know anything, please join us. Let's talk.
Anyone want to be
together.
my secretary? Keep track of my notes. Yeah. But the good thing, I have everything on file here, and I've digitized everything, and I can just pull stuff up through a search. So anyway,
you know what else is digitized?
Dark Side of Soul.
The Dark Side of Soul comic book.
Absolutely. On the way. Weird
tales from Korean lore.
Yeah.
Yeah. I actually, have you printed yours yet, Sean?
No. I just did all my,
I immediately used up my entire color cartridge to print this whole thing up when I received it.
Ton of color. Yeah.
So yeah, we're almost, no, because I paid, why not?
Cartridges. Yeah. Going to use them.
Yeah.
Yep.
I want to see it all. I want to be the first to see it in all its glory on the printed page.
Right. So yeah, so that we're in we're in kind of it's off to the printers.
It's off to the printers as we're recording.
Yep. As of recording. Still waiting for a proof. Maybe they'll give us some feedback on how to touch things up for printing. They don't do editing. They're not going to edit content or anything like that. All that process is done. I have an editor I work with.
Well, good thing that you have a partner in this who used to work in digital printing.
Yes.
It was my job to do pre-press and set things up for flight.
That's right.
Pre-flight.
Yeah.
So I can help with that. We may hear
back from them. Yeah, we may hear back from them today, hopefully, and then we'll be we'll hopefully be printing soon, and then it'll be sent off to all of our backers on Kickstarter. They get the first color copies, and then we're going retail.
We're going to sell them. We're going to do digital and print copies.
Yep.
And depending on how many we sell, will determine how many printings we will do.
Yes. Yeah. The more printings we do, the more copies per print, the cheaper we can sell them for.
That is true.
So
yeah, I
think demand will be pretty good as long as we pimp it out pretty good.
We gotta pimp it out, but it's good. Yeah.
It is good.
It's really good.
It's very good. Well drawn, excellently drawn.
Honestly, I would say this is a great English teaching tool for any teachers in Korea.
Yeah, or people overseas who have students who come, like international students. Yeah. Some of our patrons, I know at least one.
It's so interesting. Students. It is so interesting, and anyone interested in Korean history, Korean lore, or just loves good stories. This is.
Did you notice that there's one part in the story where I link European history with Korean history?
I missed it.
Yeah, it's in one of the the points where the tour guide, the guide is leading the tour, and someone asks him about witchcraft in Korea. So I've always been interested. I've studied the European witch trials. So I've always been interested in how witch trials in Europe, some in a way link to similar events in Korea, although they're different. But I do mention that. So I connect Korean history with European history from the 12th century and the 17th century.
Okay.
In the dialogue.
I didn't catch that, but if you haven't figured out yet, if this podcast was Pinky in the Brain, I'd be Pinky.
I want to be Pinky. He's the sweet one. Brain's an asshole. I don't want to be the man. I need a drink.
All right. Well, anyway, thank you for listening. Please join us on the Dark Side of Soul tour, darksideofsoul.com. Our music is presented to us by Sorak-san, which you can find if you're a patron. You can join us at patreon.com/darksideofsoul. We'd like to thank our top tier patrons, Sharon Cullen, Angel Earl, Jamie Staley, and Joel Bonamini. Also, if you have had any supernatural experiences in Korea, please contact us. Contact us by email. Do
Facebook first.
Do Facebook first. Contact us through Facebook first. Say you have a story. Then Sean will give you his email address, and then you email him his story.
Right.
That's the way it works.
Yeah. That's the best way to do it, I think. Yeah. So,
compiling a book, a new book. Dark Side of Soul Publishing. It feels like yes.
Our second book, and there will be more comics in the future as long as demand is there. Yeah. I have 3 volumes in mind, and the first one's done. I already have the notes done for volume 2. A trilogy, yeah. I have the notes for volume 2 done. I just have to write the script. All right. That takes a long time. Takes months to write a script. So.
Yeah, because it is quite detailed. It's not. There aren't many fight scenes in this.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert, but it's not like Batman where you can fill up 5 pages with oomph. Oh, oomph.
Right. Crack-a-goom.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you everyone for listening. Until next time, stay spooky.
Good night.